Be empowered from the schools that their kids go to school, and though many of them don't necessarily live in the district, that still means that they need a voice. And it's just too many high schools to be represented by only one community education council. So we believe that there should be authority in the local districts as well over the high schools in those districts.
I'm City Councilman Bill Blasio. I'm a member of the Council Education Committee, and more important, I'm a public school parent, one child in high school, one child in middle school. I want to ask any and all panelists what they think sort of the role of, if you will, the role of democracy is in our schools. I want to thank, by the way, Queen Civic Congress for having this forum, and you stood up, the Civic Congress stood up very, I think, admirably on a recent debate about democracy in our city. Now I think this is a discussion of democracy in our schools. So my feeling as a parent is, if parents don't think their voice matters, they don't engage the school system overall. When I was a community school board member in District 15, which was one of the school boards that worked relatively better, we saw parents come out in huge numbers every month, whatever was on the agenda, because they understood it was their opportunity to hear what was going on and address actual decision makers, unscripted, no rules. They could raise any question they wanted, they could demand answers, and I thought it was very healthy for the system. Under this version of mayoral control, I think there's been such a problem with a lack of any kind of checks and balances, and I think what that says to parents is, in effect, stay away. I think on the social promotion issue raised earlier, I think there was a chilling effect when the debate that was occurring citywide about the third grade policy ended in the two members of the panel being fired. That didn't exactly recommend to parents to get more deeply involved in the discussion. So I'm going to give you two examples, and I'd like response on what you think on this. It seems to me, if we had a more vibrant role for districts, and or if we had an actual citywide board or panel that could in fact modify policies, you would not have seen probably two things. You would not have seen the decision to grade schools in the manner that's been decided upon, which has been very broadly rejected by parents as counterproductive and again having a chilling effect on their efforts to help improve their schools. And you wouldn't have seen this brief disaster we had with pre-K admissions back in the spring when there was chaos and the rules were not being followed, but parents really didn't have any place to go locally to address the issue. So for both sides of the debate, I say if you had more checks and balances, those two decisions would have come out better. What do you say?
The whole point about democracy is not just that it's more democratic, but that our founding fathers believed that if you had input from many different sides, that you would actually end up with better decisions. And I think that's what we're talking about here. We believe not just in democracy because it's an abstract value that we all hold dear, but because if you actually consult the people on the ground, the stakeholders, the teachers, the principals, the parents, and you have actual educators in your inner circle, of which there are very, very few in the Department of Education, you actually come out with more rational, productive, positive policies. And that's one of the major problems, is because there's no consultation outside this very inner circle of people who are mostly lawyers, not educators. Many of the policies are damaging, and there's also a tremendous sense of mismanagement that goes on. So I think that democracy is important as an abstract value, but it's also important to make sure that the right kind of policies are implemented in our schools.
I want to agree with that statement as well. I mean, I'm focused on special education. I can tell you the policy about reorganizing special ed again did not come from the mayor and the chancellor. It came through the Gotham newspaper. Garth Harries and Eric Nadelstern are going to take over the Department of Education, and Garth Harries is going to oversee all special education, a laudable goal, but nobody knows about this because it came through the press. Now, how do you get democracy? This is impacting young people. It impacts my granddaughter, who is in a high-functioning middle school in the city. I should have known that beforehand. Again, the way the system is now, there is no democratic process to actually hear what's going on before it gets to be a policy. The key is be part of the conversation before the policy is rolled out, because you're right, the busing, the social promotion would not have happened in that same manner if we had the checks and balances from the panel to the district to the school.
We'll take the final comment from Rob and then move on.
You won't always get a better result just because you have a lot of people making the decision. And that's part of why we did go to mayor control. But checks and balances are needed to take that energy that the mayor, in his capacity as being in control, take his energy, but control it. Then you might not always get the best policy. You won't get the stupid things like busing in mid-season. That's just a given. But not all policies will be the best. They won't be brilliant. But if you give people a little bit of input, you got what's called as cover. And that's what we've been asking for 6 years. Run something by us once in a while before you make the decision. You'd be surprised. We might agree with you. You might be happy.
I would say buy-in, not cover. Cover good.
Okay, 3 more panelists want to talk on this issue, and we'll go through it right now.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilman Blasio, for your question. I think that one of the major problems with the lack of checks and balances right now has to do with the level of accountability at the top. And the Department of Education talks a lot about accountability. Accountability for teachers, parents, students, schools, but there's not real accountability at the top of our school system. Yes, we know who the buck stops with. The buck stops with the mayor. But if the mayor does something wrong, or makes a bad decision, there's nothing really that anyone can do about it because there are no checks and balances. And so until we have that, there isn't going to be accountability at the top levels of our education system.
Well, for any system to be successful, you need accountability, you need transparency, you need participation, you need collaboration, and we don't have all of those aspects in the system the way it exists now. And in order for our schools to be as efficient as possible, to be as inclusive as possible, to be as effective as possible, we need some changes to the government system the way it exists.
Dina?
Rob chose a very good word when he talked about cover. That's what the system did for most of its life. Everybody was covering themselves. Nobody was thinking about what was best for the student. And what mayoral control allows us to do is to not worry about political, but to rather focus on what is the best policy that's actually going to bring us to a point where we can have confidence that our children are getting the best education that they deserve. That's the bottom line in all of this. And in terms of democracy, and in terms of debate, and in terms of engagement, all of that boils down to someone making a decision. And oftentimes, particularly around education, those decisions are going to be unpopular. And someone has to take responsibility for taking the heat. As I forgot who was here who said, you know, tonight I'm taking the heat. The mayor takes it when things go badly. And when things go well, we kind of like to share. But when things go badly, whether it's the buses or whoever else, you know, we go before the city council, we go to in front of whoever, and we say, and we've been, you know, before you said, you know what, we screwed up on the buses for a variety of reasons, and more importantly, it's not just we screwed up, it's we screwed up. Therefore, these are the steps we're taking to correct it. That's important because in the old system that didn't happen because everybody pointed fingers at each other and no one had the responsibility to fix the problem. We had the responsibility to fix the problem.
We're going to take